Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I can see the strength is very less. I don't know why, what's the reason? Hmm? Okay, anyways. So, previous class we had discussed about the root locus, isn't it? So, we have even solved a problem. Some two problems we have already done it. So, today's class, I will just brief you about what were points we had studied in the previous class. And there are a few more points which I have included here. So I'll just brief you about all those points and then we will solve a little more complicated problem. Okay. So you have seen the definition of root locus already. Root locus is defined as the path traced by the roots of the characteristic equation when the gain k is varied from 0 to infinity. So for the closed loop system to be stable, what is the condition? All the poles should lie to the left half of S plane. In terms of root locus, we can say the complete root locus must lie on the left half of the test plane for the system to be stable. So when will you say the system is unstable in case of root locus? So if the root locus completely lies to the right hand side of the S plane and is conditionally stable, if it lies partially on the left half and right half of S plane. So this is how you come to conclusion whether the system is stable or not with respect to root locus. So now I have just listed out few important points to be remembered when we are constructing the root locus. So just see this. So a root locus always starts at a pole and terminates at a zero. So I've written four different cases here. So if there is a pole and a zero, you can see the direction of the arrow, which is moving away from the pole and which is going to end at the zero. Similarly here, even if you have zero first and pole next, still the direction of the movement will be from pole towards zero. Then you have two zeros which are adjacent to each other, then you can see that since it is a zero here, you have one coming from, it's not like this zero is coming to this zero, it is not like that. From some of the pole you can see that it is approaching towards this zero, and from some other pole you can see that this is approaching towards this zero. Similarly this also, if you have two poles adjacent to each other, you can see that from one pole there is this movement. Okay, we have just shown the movement. I have not shown, there is no zero here. This is that means from pole it is going to move. Here also there is a pole here, from pole it is going to move. It is not that from this pole it is going to move to this pole. It is not like that. You should not read it like that. From a pole it is emerging, from this pole it is emerging. Similarly for zeros, towards this zero there is one which is coming from a pole which is at infinity. But poles, as I told you, it cannot be at infinity, but from somewhere it is going to come and join to this zero. So the directions, whenever you come across two zeros which are adjacent to each other on the root locus, if you see, you have to put the arrows like this, okay, which is moving away from the zeros. Then this arrow shows it is moving away from this zero, or you can say that for this zero it is going to come and end. So the arrow is pointing towards this zero and the arrow is pointing towards this zero. Similarly for poles, when you come across two poles adjacent to each other on a root locus, you have to show the arrow mark like this. That is, it is drifting away or moving away from the pole. This is also moving away from the pole. So this is how you should be knowing. So these are some of the important rules that you have to indicate when constructing the root locus. And whenever we come across such situations where if you find a pole and a zero adjacent to each other on the root locus, the arrow will be like this. Then if you find a zero and a pole like this, the arrow will be again from pole to zero. If there are two zeros adjacent to each other, you have to show the arrows like this. And if there are two poles adjacent to each other on the root locus, then you have to show arrows like this. So this is how you have to remember whenever you come across such conditions on the root locus. So here you can see a point on the real axis will lie on the root locus if the number of poles plus number of zeros equals to an odd number to the right of the point considered. That means what he says is you have to consider one test point. Okay, suppose I have a test point here. Think that there is a test point which is placed at -2. So to this point, now what is that you have to first do whenever you locate a point like this? Okay, you have to see to the right of this point. So whenever you see to the right side of this point, and if you find that the total number of zeros and poles together, if they are, what is that he says, will lie on the root locus if the number of poles, that means, okay, just a minute. Where is the testing point here which is taken? There is a mistake in what she has said. One second, just let me verify this. Take a test point on the axis to write if there are odd number of poles and zeros on the real axis. Okay. So see here. Here it says that a point on the real axis will lie on the root locus if the number of poles plus number of zeros equal to an odd number. That means suppose say I consider a test point in between this -2 and -1. Okay, suppose here if I have a point. So just see the right side of this. So if you see at the right side, then you have two poles here, isn't it? Two poles. Do not consider this. As of now, just leave this. I will tell you this later. So if you consider only these two, and if there is a test point in between -2 and -1, and if you see towards the right of this, if there are two poles here, and there are no other zeros, so you can see there is a pole at -1 and there is a pole at 0. So if that was the condition, then you can say that there is no, that means the point does not lie on the root locus. If suppose, let me take this point. If I place a point in between -1 and 0, okay, listen carefully. If I place a test point in between -1 and 0, and if I see towards the right side of the point which is lying here, then there is only one pole here. So if there is only one pole, that means that point is lying on the root locus. Okay, so since here if I consider a point here, a test point, and towards the right side of that, if I see there are two poles, that means which gives even number of poles plus zeros, because there is no zero here. So even number of poles plus zeros, that means a point does not lie on the root locus. Okay, so that is how you have to decide. Suppose if you consider, say a point is in between 0 and 1. If I consider a test point, if I place a test point between 0 and 1, see towards its right side. Towards its right side, there is one pole and there is one zero. That means there is even number of what? If you total this, you have one pole and one zero, which gives you total 2 points which are lying right side to the test point. So the what do you say? The point does not lie on the root loop. If I place a point at the origin, no, not at the, if I place at a point here, now I will consider all these three. So I will place a point in between -1 and 0, a test point, and see towards the right side of this, then you can see there's one pole here, there is one pole here, and there is one zero here. That means it is going to give odd number of the total poles plus zeros. That means the test point which I have considered between -1 and 0 is going to lie on the root locus. So that is how you have to decide. So when we are solving the problems, we will know that point. Okay, so this was one point which we had not discussed so far. So that you have to remember. Now, so the total number of loci or branches or lines. Okay, so in many books they refer to as branches, in some books they refer to as loci, in some other books they refer to as lines. So the number of branches of the root locus is equal to the number of poles or number of zeros, whichever is greater. So whenever a branch of the root locus terminates on a zero at s is equal to infinity, it always does so in parallel with a straight line called asymptote. So this also we have studied. Number of asymptotes is equal to number of poles minus number of zeros. The point on the real axis where the asymptote originates is called centroid. So you know, you are already familiar with the equation for centroid as well. Then you know this asymptotic angle, which is given by this equation. I had written it as 2x plus 1. So anything can be included here, either q or k, okay, divided by p minus z. And you know how many values you're supposed to take for q. This will be based upon the number of asymptotes present. If there are two asymptotes, then you have to take q values starting from 0 as 0 and 1. If there are three asymptotes, then you have to take the values of q as 0, 1 and 2. So that is how you decide to take the values of q. And then the point of intersection of two or more branches of a root locus is defined as breakaway points. So now this breakaway point and breaking points, you can see here the point of intersection of two or more branches of a root locus is defined as breakaway points. So here you can see, I will show you here. So the breakaway point, this is the breakaway point. Okay, so this here you have two poles. There are two poles which are adjacent to each other, and you can see how it is moving like this. So that will give you a breakaway point. When you have two zeros, then you will get a break-in point. So where is that? Here. Break-in point is a point on the real axis. See, between, okay, okay, just go back to that. Okay, so between two poles, they say this as a break-in point, and between two zeros, they call this as a breakaway point because it is moving away from each other. Okay, and here it is called as break-in point between two adjacent poles. Then, hmm, okay. Now, these points can be found out using the condition. This we have already dealt with this. Like in breakaway point, whenever you come across breakaway point, we have further steps there. First is you have to identify the characteristic equation. Then after that, you will find out k from that characteristic equation. Once you find out the equation for k, you will differentiate that value of k with respect to s and equate it to 0, isn't it? So the root locus is always symmetric about the real axis. So this also we have studied in the last class. Then angle of departure and angle of arrival. So we have dealt with, I mean, we have seen what is angle of departure. Similarly, we have angle of arrival as well. So angle of departure, what is the definition for that? The angle at which the branch of the root locus leaves a complex pole is called the angle of departure. So whenever you come across complex pole and complex zero, then you will be calculating the angle of departure and angle of arrival. So suppose when in the first step of the problem, you always find out the poles. And when you find out the poles, if you find that there is a complex pole which is present, then you call that, then in such problems, you have to find out angle of departure. And for the angle of departure, we have already written down the formula. Similarly, angle of arrival. So whenever you come across complex zeros in the given problem, then you will have to find out the angle of arrival. In some of the problems, if you have both poles and zeros to be a complex value, then you have to find out both angle of departure as well as angle of arrival. So only when you have this, then the point of intersection of the root locus on the JW axis and the range of K for closed loop stability is found using Routh-Hurwitz stability criterion, isn't it? So what is that we do here in this step? We will write down the Routh array table and we will find out that intersection point, isn't it? Similarly, and there is one alternate method also for this. Instead of Routh array, you can actually replace S by JW in the characteristic equation and equate the real and imaginary parts separately. So solve the two equations and find the point of intersection on the JW axis. So either of the two you can do as per the convenience. Okay. Next. So I had solved a few, in the previous class, we solved a problem where we had just taken k divided by s into s plus 2. Okay, and I made you solve a similar problem which was k divided by s into s plus 4. Now, I have gone just one more step ahead. I have included, last class we had only two terms in the denominator. Now we can, I have included three different terms in the denominator. So here, let me take the problem. So we have a problem g of x into h of x is equal to k divided by s into s plus 1 into s plus 2. Just a moment. Okay. So this was the problem. Now, so let me just apply those steps and solve this. And on similar, concentrate on this. I will be giving you one more problem where you have to solve and tell me the answers and also draw the graph. Okay, so now what is the step one? Plot the poles and zeros of g of s. That this is called as open loop transfer function. So sorry, loop transfer function g of s into h of s. So first plot the poles and zeros of g of s into h of s on the s plane. So in order to plot the poles and zeros, first you have to find out what are the poles and what are the zeros in the given transfer function. Yes. So if you see here in the equation, the numerator polynomial gives the zeros. But you can see here there are no s terms here, so there are no zeros. So zeros are nil. Similarly, for poles, if you see here the poles, then you have three different values of s. That means you have three poles. One is s equal to 0, then s equal to -1, and s equal to -2. So there are totally three poles. So plot the poles and zeros of g of s into h of s on the s plane. So draw the s plane, mark it as sigma on the real axis and j omega on the imaginary axis. So there are three poles. One is at s is equal to 0, and you know poles are indicated by into here. So one at s is equal to 0, one at s is equal to -1, and one at s is equal to -2. And there are no zeros. So now you can see here that there are three poles like this. So now let me just check whatever I had told in the previous explanation. If I place a point, a test point here, okay, if I place a test point here, then what is that I have to see? I have to see towards its right side. So towards the right side, if you see, when I'm placing a test point between 0 and -1, then towards the right side, if there you can see there is only one pole. That means there are no zeros, and poles there are only one. That means it has odd number of odd value. That means the point here will be lying on the root locus. So that means I can confirmly say that there is a root locus which is from 0 to -1. Similarly, if I place a test point between -2 and -1, if I place a test point here, then if I see towards its right side, there are two poles. That means it is going to give even number. So what does that indicate? There is no, that means the test point will not lie on the root locus. So that means I can say that I have started drawing the root locus starting from 0, and successfully I can draw the point till -1. And what happens here if I place a test point in between -1 and -2? The point, it says that the point does not lie on the root locus. That means from -1 to -2 there is no root locus. Then suppose if I place a point after -2 and see towards its right side, there are three poles. That means odd number of odd value is now given. That means to say that there will be a root locus present after -2. That means when I start drawing a root locus from 0, if I travel towards its left side, how will the root locus be seen at the end? From 0 to -1, there is a line drawn. From -1 to -2, there is no root locus. There is the break in a root locus. Then again from -2 till infinity, you can say that there is a root locus. So where is the break which is happening? Here. The root locus is broken here at this point between -1 and -2. So hope you understood this. So at the end, when I show you the final graph, you should see that there is a root locus here and there is a root locus from here to till infinity, and you should see that there is no root locus here. So I will be going step by step, but keep these things in your mind so that you can verify it at the end. Now, so now we have successfully found out we have successfully found out the poles and zeros, and we have marked those poles and zeros, and also I have taught you how to find out whether there is a root locus at these points or not. Now, so this will be our first step. Then second step, if you see, excuse me. Now, if you look at the second step, so k is equal to 0 indicates what? The points where the poles will emerge, isn't it? So the points where the poles will emerge are s is equal to 0, s equal to -1, and s equal to -2. So those are called as finite pole locations. Then, since we do not have zeros here, so for each of these poles which are originating at these points, it should have an end or a zero which is present at infinity. Those are called as asymptotes. So k is equal to infinity are the points which indicates the 0 points. So points are s is equal to infinity, infinity, infinity. So for every corresponding pole, sorry, for every pole there must be a corresponding zero, and that zero is present at infinity in this problem. So it is infinite zero locations. So that is step number 2. Then coming to step number 3, a branch of the root locus always starts on a pole k is equal to 0 and ends on a 0, that is k is equal to infinity. So this sentence you have to write very carefully. Do not get confused. For pole, it is always k starting from 0, and for zeros, it indicates where that is going to end. So k is equal to infinity. Then next point, number of branches of the root locus is equal to number of poles is equal to, so why number of poles? Because number of branches or number of loci or number of lines of the root locus, what is the formula? It is maximum of poles comma zeros, and since zeros here are is nil, so you will be considering poles which has a value of 3. So because p is equal to 3 and z is equal to 0, we have found the value of the branches as 3, isn't it? Now, sketch the root locus on the real axis. So here you can see, yeah, this I had discussed, right? Here, what have I done? So I have started the root locus from 0. It is moving till -1, and I told you that there is a break here, there is a gap here. Again, from -2, it starts. So now you have to see here what is that I have indicated here, arrows. So in the previous page, I told you that whenever you come across two poles adjacent to each other on a root locus, then what should be the directions of the arrows? It is like this. That means from the pole it is going up. Here from the pole it is going up, isn't it? So this is should be very careful when you are marking the arrow marks. Similarly, now here when I consider a pole, obviously this pole which is and we do not have any other things here on the left hand side. When I consider a pole here, definitely it should emerge from this point and it should go and end at a 0, and a 0 for me here is at infinity. So I have just shown this, that from this pole it is emerging out. So the direction is going away from this pole. I hope you're all following this. If you have any doubts, you can leave the comments in the chat box. I will help you out. So till here, you should be very, very careful. So whatever I had given you the explanation in step 1, it is now shown here. So the root locus here is like this. See, you can see that the line is darkened here and the line is darkened here. But here there is a thin line. That means I have not darkened this because there is a break in the root locus. And the directions, whenever you come across two poles adjacent to each other, the direction should be shown like this. So this is called as break-in point. So you will get a point here in between these two arrows, which is called as break-in point. As you can see, both the arrows are coming towards a point, towards a meeting point. And here you can see that there is a pole here and there is a 0 somewhere. So from here it is going to emerge, or it is going to move away from this pole. And since I do not have any 0 here, and I can say that a 0 is present somewhere at infinity, I have not shown anything, just an arrow here with a darkened portion of the graph. So till here I hope you all have understood. Then number of asymptotes is equal to number of poles minus number of zeros. So number of asymptotes is equal to number of poles minus number of zeros, which is p minus z, which is equal to 3 minus 0 equal to 3. So definitely when there are no zeros, then you will be having asymptotes, and whatever value 3 we have got here is correct because there were 3 poles, and for those 3 poles we have 3 asymptotes. Then you have to find out the centroid. So centroid, we know the formula for centroid. It is the summation of real part of poles or finite poles minus real part of summation of real part of zeros or finite zeros divided by p minus z. So finite poles, we had got three values for poles. S is equal to 0, minus 1 and minus 2, you have to sum up all those three values minus finite zeros. There were infinite zeros but no finite zeros, so I will take it as 0 divided by p minus z, which is 3 minus 0. So that is equal to minus 3 minus divided by 3, which is equal to minus 1. So now you can see that the centroid is at minus 1, not at the origin. So centroid is at minus 1. Next, angle made by asymptotes with respect to the real axis is given by asymptotic angle, which is denoted by phi of A. So this formula also, you should remember all these formulae, which is very important. And since there are three asymptotes, what are the values of Q? It, you know that it is going to start from 0. So 0, 1 and 2, isn't it? Now substitute for Q as 0, you will get phi A as 60 degrees. Similarly, when Q is 1, you get it as 180 degrees, and when Q is substituted as 2, then you will get phi A as 300 degrees. And also remember that the root locus is symmetrical above the real axis. So now you can see here how we have plotted. So you can see this is the S plane, sigma, j omega, then the same thing what we had done previously I have marked here. So this is the origin, and the poles are denoted at 0, minus 1, minus 2, and a root locus is present here with the arrows like this, and the root locus again is continuing from minus 2 till 0, and there is arrow mark shown like this, isn't it? And now what is that we have to do? We have found out the angle of asymptotes. Now those angle of asymptotes should be marked here. So the first angle that we came across was theta is equal to 60 degrees. So this is the reference line. So from here you can see that there is an arrow which is shown for 60 degrees. Make use of the protractor and then just draw a line here. So this line is going to bisect this imaginary axis at one particular point. Okay, this is angle phi A1, which is 60 degrees. Then again this as a reference, the next value was 180 degrees. So 180 degrees. So you can see the dotted line here, which indicates second asymptote. This was the first asymptote at 60 degrees, second asymptote at 180 degrees, and third asymptote. Again, keep this as reference. Take a protractor and plot 300-degree angle. You will get somewhere here. Make sure that this asymptote and this asymptote are symmetric to each other, isn't it? So this is this that means the point where this is going to cut this imaginary should be the same here at the negative side. So this is phi a1, this is phi a2, and this is phi a3. So these are the three asymptotes which we have indicated on the graph. Okay, so then what else we have indicated here? Okay, till here I hope you all have understood. So the root locus is symmetrical with respect to the real axis, isn't it? So when you see here now, the root locus is symmetrical with respect to the real axis. To find the breakaway point, now we have to find out the next step is to find out the breakaway point. So you have to find out the point where the breakaway is going to occur. So to find the breakaway point, what is the first step in that? You have to consider the system characteristic equation. So the system characteristic equation, as you all know, it is given by 1 plus g of s into h of s, which is equal to 0. Then loop transfer function is given, substitute, simplify that. Okay, so when you simplify, you will get like this. So here, let's multiply all the s terms and then add, if you have any terms with same degrees, add those terms, and then you will be able to get the characteristic equation. So once you get the characteristic equation, find out the value of k, because you have to derive like this. So differentiate this. Differentiate k. So now separate the terms, put all the s terms on the right hand side separately, and take the k term to the left hand side, and differentiate this k now with respect to s ones. When you do that, and you have to equate that to 0, so do the simple differentiation here and equate that to 0. So it is minus 3s, minus is common here, so I have taken out minus. Then when you differentiate, this is 3s square plus 6s plus 2, which is equal to 0. So finally, you will get the value of expression as 3s square plus 6s plus 2 is equal to 0. Then find out the value of this equation in the calculator. So you will get S as minus 0.42 and S as minus 1.58. So you are going to get two values. So now out of these two values, you have to find out which is a valid point out of these two. So you are getting 2 points. We have what is that we are doing here? We are finding out the breakaway point, isn't it? And breakaway point, you are getting two values. So you have to see which is a valid breakaway point. For that, what is that we do? Now you can see here, just check. So S is equal to minus 4.2 means where is that point? It is lying between 0 and minus 1. And you can see that in between 0 and minus 1, there is a root locus. So this point is present on the root locus. Whereas if you consider S is equal to minus 1.58, see here when you just search for that point, it is between minus 1 and minus 2 here. That means you're going to place that point here at the point of minus 1.58. And if you observe, there is no root locus here. So this point, which you have got it as minus 1.58, is not a valid point. So I will just neglect that point. So here you can see I've written that not a breakaway point as it is not present on the root locus. Whereas minus 0.42 is a valid point. How are you going to say this as a valid point since it is present on the root locus? So this will be the breakaway point. Okay. So now, so when you have this, okay, so you have got a breakaway point between these two values. So which is S is equal to minus 0.42. Once you have got this, next, what is that you have to find out? You have to, in the next step will be to find either angle of departure or angle of arrival. But since we have not got any complex poles or complex zeros, so do not have to compute that step. So there is no need to calculate angle of departure and angle of arrival as there are no complex poles and zeros, isn't it? So you can just easily skip that step. Then we have to find out the intersection point. Now, to find the point of intersection point means which point? See here. Now, this asymptote is going to cut this imaginary axis at a particular point. We have to find out that point. And here in the reverse direction also, you can see that this point. So both the points, whatever you now find out using step number 12, should be same with different magnitude. Sorry, with different sign, isn't it? Same magnitude but different sign. So that step, how do you find out? To find the point of intersection on the JW axis, so you have to consider the characteristic equation. We have already computed that when we were finding out the breakaway point. We have arrived at this equation already. So you need not have to again redo it. You can straight away write down that expression here and equate that to 0. So I told you that you can use two steps, two methods where either you can construct using Routh array stability criterion or you can substitute S as j omega. So I have used this step, that is using RH stability criteria. So when I do this, so you know that starting from the maximum value, write down S cube, S square, S power 1, S power 0, and then you write down the values alternately, the magnitudes of odd powers, you write down here 1 and 2, and magnitudes of even powers, write down in the next row 3, and this is the value, that is k, and then find out using the formula, that is 3 into 2, which will give you 6, minus k into 1, which is k, divided by 3. And here you do not have any other cross values here, so just write it down as 0. And then here you should write down the magnitude of s to the power, the coefficient of s power 0 term. So it is k. So once you write down this, for the system to be stable, what is that you have to do? You have to consider the first column of the Routh array and see to it that all the elements of the first column should be greater than 0. So 1 is greater than 0, this is satisfied. 3 is greater than 0, this is also satisfied. 6 minus k divided by 3 should be greater than 0. I've written it down here. So when you just simplify this, You will get 6 minus k greater than 0 or k is less than 6. So what is the maximum value of k? Maximum value of k should be 6. And we have one more term here, that is k, which should also be equal to 0. So k should be greater than 0 and it should be less than 6. So this is the uh, condition for the system to be stable. Now, for the point on the root locus to lie on imaginary axis, what is that we have to do? You have to consider this row, that is s to the power 1 row should become a row of all zeros, isn't it? So that I have already explained. So to find out that what should happen, so this is the row which has this k term right above that row. So you have to make this row as 0, and once you make this row as 0, you have to consider the equation above that all 0 row. So that will be 3s squared plus k here, auxiliary equation, isn't it? So should become a row of all zeros. So find out the value of k, that is implies k is equal to 6, isn't it? Because 6 minus k by 3 is equal to 0. You have to equate this value to 0. Then you will get k as 6. Then auxiliary equation you have to find out. The equation you have to consider above the all 0 row. So that will be 3s square plus k equal to 0. 3s square plus k is now 6 equal to 0. 3s square minus, 3s square is equal to minus 6, and s square is equal to minus 6 divided by 3, which is equal to minus 2. So s square is equal to minus 2, and so what is s from this? It is plus or minus square root of minus 2, which will give you plus or minus j root 2. So from this you will get the s value of plus or minus j 1.414, that is equal to plus or minus j omega, isn't it? So now just redraw that portion, and now you can see that whatever you can see here this point which I said that it is the asymptote. So that will be cutting this positive imaginary axis at j2 plus j2, sorry, plus j root 2, isn't it? And in the negative side it is minus j, it is root 2, okay, not 2, it is minus j root 2. And then you can see here what is that I have written here. This is a breakaway point, right, at minus 0.46. So you can see that this, now we have to draw this, which will be parallel to this asymptote. Okay, so you can see that from this pole there is a point moving here, from this pole there is a point, and at this point you can see that there is a breakaway which is happening. So this will move this side and this will be this side. Why is this shown like this? Because from this pole it should go and join to a zero which is present at infinity. Similarly, from this pole it is emerging and it should join at one more zero which is present at infinity. So that is why we are drawing this second line which is parallel to the asymptote. Okay, so that is what we have done here. We are just drawing a second line which is parallel to the asymptote. Okay, so that is what we have indicated here. K tending to infinity, k is tending to infinity. And these points, that is 0, minus 1 and minus 2, you can write it here in brackets as k is equal to 0, k equal to 0, k equal to 0. So there are three asymptotes. Asymptote 1 is here, asymptote 2 is here, and asymptote 3 is here. And we have drawn a line which is parallel to that asymptote and which will be touching that asymptote at infinity. Okay? So note, you can see a note here. Whenever there are two adjacent poles and root locus the root locus is in between them, then there exists a breakaway point where the root locus will leave the real axis. Similarly, whenever there are two adjacent zeros, then there exists a break-in point where the root locus will enter the real axis to terminate at the zeros present on the real axis. So this is about the complete way of solving a root locus problem. I'll just get back to the screen and I hope you have understood. You just, one second, I'll just come back. So if you have any doubts, please let me know. Okay? Any doubts? Okay, I have got one question, ma'am. How to find out auxiliary equation? This is very simple, right? We have already done enough number of problems. Okay, I will explain it. I'll just get back to the screen. Material, I will share it. Don't worry. I'm still in the beginning of the root locus, right? I will do everything and I will share it. Whenever I'm doing something, you can just make a note of all those things. Okay, but I will share the material. It will be put up in the Google Classroom. Okay, as of now, we have shared the material for stability part, isn't it? So this is the second part of that module 4. So this will also be shared. But if you have any doubts, you can ask me. How to find out auxiliary equation? I'm getting back to that. See here, how to find out auxiliary equation. See here. This you have followed using RH stability. So first you will write down to find out the intersection point. You are doing this, isn't it? Now, for the system to be stable, as I told you that, see here, these 2 points should be great. These two values should be greater than 0. This also you have understood. Then we have to find out the imaginary points. That means the point on the imaginary axis where it is going to cut, where the asymptote will cut the imaginary x. For that, what you have to do is you have to consider the auxiliary equation. But how do you get the auxiliary equation? See here. This was 1, this was 3. Immediately after that, you have 6 minus k by 3. So that means you're getting a variable here. So at this row, what you have to do is you have to make this row completely 0. To make that row completely 0, what should be the value of k here? K should be 6. So 6 minus 6 will be 0. Divided by 3, well, this will be 0. So first you have to make this row completely 0. So to make that row completely 0, I have computed that 6 minus k by 3 as 0, which implies k value should be 6. So once you have made this row as all 0 elements, what is that you have to do? You have to consider the row previous to all 0 elements, all 0 row, isn't it? So that is this row you have to consider. So this row, when you consider, which is above the all 0 row, that is called as auxiliary equation, isn't it? So what is this corresponding? And I told you that auxiliary equation should always include second order of s. So you have s square here. So 3s square plus k, write down as it is. K should be written down as it is. See here, 3s square plus k is equal to 0. And then put the k value as 6 and solve for s. So to find, when you find out the value of s, you will get it as plus or minus j 1.414. So this is plus or minus j omega. That is, it is showing this point. See, this is the asymptote one which is cutting. So you do not know at which point it is going to cut. So this is the point where it is going to cut. So that value should be plus or minus 1.414. Okay. I hope you have understood this. We'll come back. Okay. Ma'am, can you please explain? Okay, I'll just come back to your doubts. So I hope Akash had asked. Akash, SB, did you follow about the auxiliary equation? Still, or do you still have any doubts with respect to how to find out the auxiliary equation? Just let me know. Okay, fine. So, fine, we have understood. Now, the next question is from Anusha Upadhyaya. Ma'am, can you please explain the break in the root locus? Yes, sure. I will just go back to that. break in the root locus. See, ma, here I told you that. Where was that point? Okay, see here. Hmm, this point, this is a very important point to decide about where to draw the root locus and how there is a break in the root locus. So I said that a point on the real axis will lie on the root locus if the number of poles plus number of zeros equals an odd number to the right of the point considered. So see, whenever you want to find out the root locus, we have to start drawing the root locus starting from 0. Okay, from 0 it is going to move in the negative direction, negative real part, because this is the left hand side, isn't it? The root locus should lie on the left hand side. Only then you can say that the system is stable. So that is why we start constructing the root locus starting from 0. So when uh, you now we have already indicated the points where we have poles, isn't it? So I'll just go back to that problem. There I will explain you that. Now here, see, in this problem, we have three poles, one at 0, one at -1, one at -2. Always take a test point. First, you keep the test point in between 0 and -1 because we are going to start from 0. So place a test point on the at a point which is between 0 and -1. So now I have placed a test point here. Once, now just imagine, okay? Imagine that I have placed a test point in between 0 and -1. Now just see towards the right side of this test point. When you observe the right side of this test point, there is only one pole. That means total number of poles plus zeros are only 1. That means this is an odd number. So if you get an odd number of zeros and poles, it is not just poles or zeros, it is poles and zeros. Okay, so since you have only an odd number of pole here, that means the test point which I considered here will be lying on the root locus. So that is why I have drawn the root locus from 0 and have continued it till -1. Now take that test point, place it in between -1 and -2. When I place that test point in between -1 and -2, now again what you have to do, observe towards its right side. When you observe towards its right side, how many poles and zeros are there in total? There are two poles and there are no zeros at all. So two poles means it is giving even number. Even number means it indicates that the point which I considered here will not be lying on the root locus. So that means I should not draw the root locus here. Okay, then let's now come to this point where we have a pole at -2. Now I will be considering a test point between -2 and the next point. Okay, so if I consider a point here, now see towards the right side of that, how many poles and zeros are there in total? There are three poles. Three poles means it will give odd number. Whenever you come across odd number, that means the point which I considered here will be lying on the root locus. So now again I will be continuing the root locus from -2 and so on till where? Till infinity. There is a root locus. So that is why I have told you that there is a break, because when at this point, when I see towards its right side, there are even number of total number of poles plus zeros. So that means the test point will not lie on this. That's why I have not drawn the root locus here. So there is a break at this in between -1 and -2. I hope you have understood this. Okay, good, fine. So any more doubts? Any more doubts? So today's class is about this one problem which we have done. So tomorrow I will take up one more problem of different variety, and also we will discuss about the cases where we come across complex poles and complex zeros. Okay. I hope you all have understood. Are you all happy the way the concept of root locus is being taught? If not, please let me know. Okay. Okay, good. So you can just, if you have some textbook at home, just take one random problem of the similar kind and try to solve it. And please plot these things, whatever I'm doing here, plot these things on the graph sheet and keep it with you. Okay, and you can even verify those values whether you're getting the value as 1.14. All those things you can observe. That gives a more clarity. Okay. So I think today's class is done, but I expected more strength, but the strength is still less. I'm very unhappy about the strength of the class. These are very important topics and will not be repeated again and again. So make sure, just inform your other friends or classmates to join the class. Okay, that's all for the day. Thank you.